Hello and welcome. My name is Thomas Woolley and I'm a mathematical lecturer here in Cardiff. And hopefully if you're watching this video, you're currently thinking about whether to do maths at university, which we fully recommend. So joining me now are a couple of students and Katerina Kari, one of the other lecturers in the department. And what we want to do is really give you an idea of the diversity of mathematics in the department. Specifically, what we look at is we're applied mathematicians, and even more specifically within that, we've chosen a route of mathematical biology. Because we're all mathematicians, first and foremost. But what we saw in our careers is that biology has a lot of questions which mathematics can help push forward. So that's what we do, is we have conversations, we work with the biologists, and they generate a lot of data. They then have a lot of ideas about the mechanisms behind their systems that they're doing experimentally. We then try and take that reality and turn it into an equation. This is the modeling process. You'll hear a lot about this in the next few minutes. We abstract reality into mathematics. We then process that mathematics and try and reproduce reality, because that's the whole essence. If you can't reproduce reality, then you're wrong. But if you're right, then you understand your process as a formula. But even if you're wrong, it still tells you something. It tells you you're missing some ideas. So the idea then is the mathematics can hopefully tell us where the holes are in our theory. So once we put our theory all back together, we can go back to the biologist and say, are you sure that you understand everything? Because we can't quite reproduce the data as you see it. So joining me now is Katerina Kari to tell you a bit more about the diversity in her research as well.
Hello, I'm Katerina Kari and I'm a lecturer in applied mathematics at Cardiff University. As Thomas mentioned, there are so many different real-life challenges that can be modeled using mathematics. One very current example are the models of the coronavirus pandemic. You must have heard in the media in the recent months how these models are being used to predict the number of people infected or unfortunately dying from the coronavirus. As such, these models are very useful tools for policymakers around the world to decide when and how to ease the lockdown. Another very exciting challenge we have been working on is modeling calcium signaling. Calcium that is not in our bones is distributed across our cells in the body and is responsible for a very wide range of processes. For example, muscle and heart contraction, wound healing, and when things go wrong, blood clotting, and unfortunately cancer. In women, calcium is key in coordinating fertilization, the formation of new life, and embryogenesis, how things go when the embryo starts growing. So here we have today with us Layla and Abhishek, who are going to talk to us about in vitro fertilization, IVF, the primary treatment of infertility around the world. And Abhishek is going to talk to us about calcium signaling in embryogenesis. We also have here with us Tim and Josh, who are working with companies in their PhD projects, and they're going to talk to us respectively about IVF and breast cancer. So with this, Layla, to you.
Yes, my name's Layla. I did my undergraduate maths degree at Cardiff, and this gave me so many opportunities, and I got to study abroad, and I didn't want to leave this big maths family, so I decided to stay for an MPhil with Katerina and Thomas. And my research is looking at calcium signaling in egg cells at fertilization. So there are quite a few models out there for this already, but none of them work perfectly. So I'm trying to take the parts that work and repair the parts that don't, and fit it closely with the data to get the maths and biology all linking up. So I'm really lucky to work with Professor Carl Swan from the bioscience department as well. He's having a really positive impact on the project. And yeah, with working directly with an experimentalist as well as Katerina and Thomas, the mathematicians, we're hoping to get a really valuable result and improve the science behind IVF.
Yeah, so IVF is a huge issue worldwide. Fertility, we all want to be able to, well, some of us want to be able to produce the next generation, and we want to be able to make sure that we're all fertile enough to do this. So not only do we have Layla working on the idea of IVF, we also have another student. Tim, take it away.
Thank you, Thomas. So I'm Tim. I also studied my undergrad here at Cardiff and stayed for the PhD. My PhD is part funded by KES2, which is a European initiative, and also it's part funded by the London Women's Clinic, which is a group of fertility clinics across the country. And the London Women's Clinic offers in vitro fertilization, or IVF, which is where you take a human egg, you fertilize it in the lab, and then you transfer it to the womb of the patient in the hope that it starts a successful pregnancy. Another thing they offer is embryo freezing, where you take those embryos, you freeze them so that you can use them later. And when you freeze an embryo, it compacts down and compresses into a tight ball of cells. And then you can actually film, as you thaw these embryos out, the way they expand and grow back to the original size. My project is looking at videos of these embryos, and we analyze data from those videos to try and predict which of those embryos is most likely to form a successful child. Because there's been loads and loads of children born. There's been about 8 million children since the start of IVF born through IVF, but the success rates per transfer are still quite low, so there's a lot of room for improvement in IVF. And with that, I'll hand over to Katerina.
Thank you, Tim. It's really an honor for us mathematicians that we are able to work on such an important problem for society. So with this, we're still keeping in the field of development with Abhishek, that is going to talk to us about calcium signaling in embryogenesis.
So my name is Abhishek and I come all the way from India, but I've been in the UK for most of my adult life because I was doing my electrical engineering undergrad from the University of Manchester. And as soon as I was done with that, I knew I wanted to do more maths in my life. So I applied for an MPhil at Cardiff University, and I got to work with Katerina on this project on calcium signaling in embryogenesis. So what I do is I study the calcium signaling process during the stages of embryo development, particularly how things might go wrong and lead to malformations, which would then lead to birth defects like spina bifida. So spina bifida is a birth defect that affects the formation of the spinal column in newborns, and on average, 1 in 500 newborns are affected by this. I was surprised to note how easily I could transfer the skills that I'd learned in engineering to maths. So stuff like linear algebra, differential equations, and the programming is really coming in handy right about now, because my usual work involves solving a system of partial differential equations with different software packages. And that's just to see how the calcium information can be transmitted between different neighboring cells and how they might respond to this information. They mostly stretch and squeeze. So it's pretty engaging work. And I was fortunate enough to be able to stay over for a PhD. And I'll be working with Katerina again and with head of school, Professor Tim Phillips. Fortunately, I received the Vice Chancellor's scholarship to be able to continue my research. In the future, I'll be working with experimentalists to be able to model this process further. And hopefully we'll be able to figure out exactly how and when things go wrong. And maybe you'll be able to come up with an intervention to prevent these malformations from occurring in the first place. If we succeed, I'll have achieved a childhood dream of mine, and that is to bring the maths out of the textbooks and into solving a real world problem.
Fantastic, thank you. I mean, hopefully what you're seeing is that there's a real good story here of increasing complexity, all the way going from Layla. I'm not saying her work isn't complex, but it's only using time as a dimension. Then we're going to space with Tim, but he's only still using one cell. Abhishek is using tissues of cells. And now we've got finally Josh, who's not only going to look at the cell in terms of multiple cells, but actually structure and shape as well. Josh, please take it away.
So I'm Josh. I've been at Cardiff for 4 years now, where I came to study for my BSc. After completing my undergrad, I stayed here to do a PhD in mathematical biology under the supervision of Thomas and the biologist Trevor Dale. He is a specialist in breast organoids. So a breast organoid is a small lab-grown collection of cells that's able to replicate the function of breast tissue in a scaled-down and manageable way. So I'm interested in using mathematics to understand cancer, which in collaboration with my industrial partner Celeste, we are linking experimental biology to mathematical models to understand breast organoid formation. In particular, the shape of the organoid is one indicator of its health. So we're interested in how the shape changes from a simple hollow sphere to a complex branch structure. And this is driven through division, movement, and death of cells. These are all regulated within the cell at a scale so small you can't even observe with the state-of-the-art microscopes. So we use our mathematics to investigate how these internal cell dynamics affect the larger scale mechanics of the organoid, something that would not be possible with our current biology. So our work has led me to exciting new areas of mathematics, as well as becoming a member of a biological lab, something that I just didn't think was possible when I started my BSc 4 years ago.
Yeah, that's what we hope we've shown you. If you come and do mathematics, you learn a lot more than just mathematics. You learn how to be a problem solver. You learn how to be numerate. You learn how to have a logical chain of thought. And if you don't go on to carry on with research, it doesn't matter. You've gained those 3 skills, which are eminently employable by corporations around the world. And we hope to look forward to seeing you in the future.